In my previous video, we covered two models of the Clang drive, which are devices that exploit the physics of space engineers to move your ships very fast at very little cost. However, the Clang drive we'll be covering today is much more complicated, but it's also a lot more powerful. So we're going to be building a version of the Clang drive called a merge drive, which is so called because it uses merge blocks. So the purpose of the merge block is quite simple. If I move forward now, you'll see that the two ships will now merge together. Now if I toggle off the merge block, they're no longer merged together. But if I get close and toggle the merge block back on, you'll see that when they're yellow, I get a little bit of magnetism. As you can see, the ship in front of me is being moved as I move around my ship. So as you can imagine, this magnetism is what we're going to be exploiting today. So the first block we need to place down is the timer block. Now we won't be able to set this up to the end, but this is part of the reason this is more complicated, as it requires you to use a timer block to set up. Now there are much more powerful versions of the Clang drive that use scripts. However, this one is very powerful even without scripts. Behind our timer block, I'm going to place a battery for power. And then on the other side of our timer block, I'm going to place a rotor. Now it's very important that you go to your terminal, go to your rotor, scroll down and up the rotor displacement to max. So as you can see, the rotor is now sticking out further than it was before. And after you set the rotor displacement, make sure to also set the rotor to lock, as in order for this to work, we don't want the rotors to move. We only want it so it's pushed out an extra 20 centimeters away from the block. You now want to place any block this side of your rotor, and then on next to that block, you need to place 4 merge blocks with a merging point facing outwards. And then next, you need to grab a piston, point it the direction the merge blocks are facing, then place 4 more merge blocks opposite the 4 merge blocks you've currently placed. Now I'd make sure to set your piston to maximum speed here, just so you don't forget, and then go to your terminal, and we need to group our merge blocks that are attached to the piston. So any blocks highlighted in a different color, i.e. not white, are blocks that are on a separate subgrid. So these merge blocks here are all on a separate subgrid on the end of the piston. So by selecting those, I'm going to call them piston merge blocks, and then save. And then I'm going to hide them in the terminal, and then I'm going to toggle them off. So as you can see now, they're red because they are turned off. Now this is the basics of the building done. You can probably imagine how this is going to work. We've got our merge blocks here, and these ones are going to be pushed along, and then that magnetism is going to push us forward. Now in order to make that happen, we need to set up our timer block. So go to your timer block, scroll down. You want to set the delay on it to 2, because 2 seconds is how long it takes for the piston to extend. And then you want to go set up actions. You want your first action to be under groups, and then you've got your piston merge blocks, and you want to set them to toggle on and off, which means every time this timer block fires, it will toggle the merge blocks on and off. And then you want your piston, you want to set that to reverse, and then you want your timer block, and you want to set that to start. So basically, every 2 seconds when this timer block triggers, your merge blocks are going to toggle on and off, your pistons are going to extend or retract, and then your timer block is going to start itself again in 2 seconds. Now the reason you want this is because when the merge blocks move, they'll obviously push you forward, but when they come back, they'll pull you backwards. Think about it this way, when you press that like button, it activates it, but if you press it again, it removes it. So we want to make sure the like button stays pressed, right? So I can place a cockpit down, get into it, and what you want on your hotbar is toggle on and off for the timer block and start. Now for the most part, you're not going to need to start, only for the first time you activate it, as most of the time you'll probably toggle the timer block on and off to enable and disable this. So once you've activated it once, you can probably just remove the timer block start from your hotbar. So I'm going to quick save now, just because this isn't finished. There's a couple of things we need to add on to it, and you'll see why in a second. But just as an example of how this works, I'm now going to press start, and in 2 seconds, the piston will push, and you can see we're instantly to 100 meters a second. The piston is pushing forward and backwards, but while spinning is a good trick, this is obviously not what we want to be doing. Now we could do this the way we did it last time, with placing gyroscopes on the grid to stabilize it. However, one of the things you might have noticed is that it was pushing itself around in a circle. This is because it isn't just pushing forward, it's also pushing us to the side. But a really easy way to counterbalance that would be to place a second identical merge drive on the other side. So if I copy the grid and I remove the extra bits, and now if I cut again, I should be able to paste this back on the side. Now, I'm not sure if you have copy and paste on Xbox, but if you don't, you can just rebuild all of this on the side. It doesn't take that long. The only thing to be aware of is you will need to regroup the merge blocks. However, because these two grids had the same name for the groups the merge blocks were in, you'll see if I go to the terminal, unhide, and then just click the merge blocks, you'll see that all the merge blocks are in the same group. However, we will need to update our timer block, as we now have 2 pistons. So I'll group my 2 pistons, and then I'll go into my timer block, set up actions, and I just need to replace this one with the group for pistons and set that to reverse. And because I copied it, it should have all the same settings. Now I'm just going to place down 4 gyroscopes, and these ones are for stability, so I'm just going to rename them all with OR for override, and then select them all and toggle override controls, which should keep us more stable while we're flying. And additionally, I'm going to place 1 gyroscope on the back of my ship in order to allow me to steer. So now if I get into the cockpit now, I'm able to move around, perfect. And now when I activate my Clang drive, we should go very fast. So the bit you've all been waiting for. Let's activate the Clang drive by pressing 2, and you should see the pistons push forward. We're going in a straight line and we're instantly at 100 meters a second. I will put the time that took on screen now. As you can see, pretty much every push from the pistons would get us up to 100 meters a second. So once we've activated this once, we can just turn it off. So once it's retracted, just turn the timer block off and the pistons will be back. And then next time you turn it on, the strip will activate again and push forward. Now you might have noticed that the pistons are pushing the rotor heads off the rotors. This seems to be fine. I haven't seen any problems from this. Obviously, we're still flying in a relatively straight line. We're banking a little bit, but that's not anything to worry about. And they're not actually falling off. They're just, snapping back into place. It doesn't really seem to be a problem. And as with the previous clang drives, this can also be used to fly in an atmosphere. And it's actually much more effective at it, as the other clang drives have to accelerate, but this one immediately gets you into 100 meters per second in any direction you're facing. So for example, if I go really close to the ground now, I probably should have quick saved before I did this, but I like to live life on the edge. So obviously we're getting quite close to the ground, and if I push up now, we're immediately flying away, because we immediately got up to 100 meters a second in that direction. And as you can see, when I'm pointing upwards, I'm immediately getting up to 100 meters a second, even though gravity is slowing me down. But this is all very well and good, but the other clang drive could kind of do this. It's a little bit better, I admit, but what makes this really powerful compared to other models of the clang drive? So here we have Apollo, which is a ship you've seen in many of my videos, and at the back of it, I've removed all the thrusters and added the hangar door clang drive from my previous video to it. So if I open the hangar door now, you'll see in a moment the ship will start accelerating. And you see, whilst it's accelerating quite quickly, the hangar door drive by itself was able to get to 100 meters per second in 2.5 seconds. And obviously, this is taking a lot longer. And this is where the real power of the merge drive comes in. So I've added the merge drive to the back of Apollo. Now, if I get into the cockpit of the merge drive and do a quick save in case of any clang-related shenanigans, turn off my inertial dampeners, and then turn on my clang drive, you'll see that we're immediately up to 100 meters a second. So this guy doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter how much the ship weighs, it will push it at 100 meters a second. Actually, I've just thought I want to test that. So Apollo weighs roughly 1 million kilograms. And my Cloudbuster sword weighs 33 million kilograms, so 33 times more. So I want to test, can the merge drive move the Buster Sword to 100 meters a second at the same rate as it can everything else? So I just want you guys to bear in mind that in order to move this ship normally, the entire inside of it is filled with large ion thrusters, and even then it still takes a very long time to accelerate to 100 meters per second. So 3, 2, 1, activate. Okay, it works. 100 meters per second instantly. That's absolutely incredible. And just as one final test for the merge drive, I've installed a mod that sets the speed limit of the game to half the speed of light, as that's the maximum the game engine will allow. And I just want to see, with one push of the merge drive's pistons, how fast we can go. So 3, 2, 1, activate. Do you know what? I was expecting it to go faster than that. It seems to go about 150, 200 meters per second per push. It actually looks like it's going less the faster we're going. Oh, that's really weird. We've actually capped out at 660 meters per second. I mean, if someone can tell me why that is, let me know. But that seems to be the fastest the merge drive can actually go. And finally, I had a lot of people ask me, how exactly do you stop when you're using the clang drive? And that's the neat part. You don't.